komunitas bisnis, orang berbisnis bertemu di sini. Ya, kita udah mulai dari tahun 2006 kita berjalan. Tidak ada khusus Anda harus jadi anggota atau tidak. Ya, di sini hanya sekumpulan orang bisnis yang berkumpul, khususnya orang Surabaya. Kemudian kita banyak bekerja sama dengan IO-nya itu CBIS dari Ubaya selama ini. Dan tujuannya adalah Anda di sini sebetulnya membuat jaringan bisnis. Jadi jangan duduk berkelompok mestinya ya. Dan kalau datang di Surabaya Business Network, kita harus bawa kartu nama sebanyak mungkin. Soalnya di sini Anda mesti tukar-tukaran kartu nama gitu ya. Karena Anda harus buat jaringan bisnis. Kita berjalan dari tahun 2006 tanpa terasa ya. Dan saya berterima kasih banyak disupport oleh Ubaya. Cuma saya minta satu kode etik dalam Surabaya Business Network selama ini adalah jika Anda berbisnis di sini, Anda berbisnislah yang profesional, ya. Jangan menipu sesama berbisnis Anda, itu bukan aturan mainnya di Surabaya Business Network, ya. Nah, malam ini nanti kita juga dapat kedatangan tamu kita yang kedua kali dari Dr. Bernardo Villegas, ya. Thank you very much for coming to SBN again, ya. Second time. Ya, kita berterima kasih banyak karena banyak nih yang dia bisa bagi pengalamannya kita. Dan jujur, sebetulnya kenapa sih Surabaya Business Network ini, komunitas ini saya adakan terus dan saya support, saya motivate. Karena begini, di Surabaya ini waktu saya datang tahun 1994, saya datang Jakarta terus saya lihat Surabaya. Surabaya ini business people-nya itu hanya beberapa orang aja. Ya. Jadi kalau you nggak bisa terobos jaringan bisnis itu, jangan berharap ya you bisnis di Surabaya, jujur aja. Ya. Kemudian sekitar tahun 2001 saya masuk sini, saya banyak merubah yang namanya AJBS Walayan, dari family business to professional business. Dari situ saya dapat mention dari semua bisnis Surabaya, anak-anaknya aja nggak kenal, second generationnya itu nggak kenal pebisnisnya. Jadi kita mengajarkan lagi. Ya. Waktu itu kita bekerja sama juga dengan AMA dan sebagainya. Satu yang unik di Surabaya Business Network ini adalah semua pembicaranya itu memberikannya tanpa imbalan, ya. Dan bahkan semua yang pernah berbicara di sini sebenarnya potential people semua, ya. Kalau nggak melalui jaringan nggak bisa. Even kita pernah dapat Pak Permadi, ya. Nggak ada, kita nggak pernah membayar pembicaranya jujur aja. Tapi yang datang harus bayar makan sendiri-sendiri, lebih gila lagi itu ya. Jadi sebenarnya bisnisnya ini berputar sendiri, ya. Terus dulu kita disupport oleh Prime Stick. Hari ini saya disupport oleh Pak Andre dari The Boliva. Pak Andre ini pemiliknya. Kita terima kasih dulu ke Pak Andre ini. Ya. Karena Pak Andre boleh tempat ini tiap bulan kamu dipakai ya, Pak Andre ya. So far win-win lah, ya. Artinya kita bisa pakai tempat ini, ya. Siapapun pebisnisnya mau juga boleh. Ya. Nah. Dalam perjalanan saya melihat adalah, saya minta maaf juga karena saya orang bisnis, saya sibuk kadang berjalan kadang tidak. Tapi saya dapat tim baru dari CBS, ada Ibu Era, terus saya dapat pendukungan dari PPM, ada Bu Yohan, saya juga dapat dukungan dari Wakil Rektor 2, Pak Stiladi, gitu ya, dari Ubaya. Jadi saya pikir kita mau giatkan lagi, ya, kita mau giatkan lagi SBM ini. Nah, seperti yang saya bilang, Anda selesai makan, sebetulnya sebelum saya mulai dengan Dr. Bernardo, Anda sekarang harus berdiri, harus tukar kartu nama, Anda harus berkenalan, ya, karena itu adalah kode etik kita, gitu ya. Saya kasih waktu kira-kira 5-10 menit, Anda changing name card bisnis, ya. Nanti saya akan mengambil dari beberapa yang datang, sekitar 3 atau 4 orang. Anda harus mengenalkan bisnis Anda di depan sini, ya, supaya orang tahu siapa Anda, gitu, ya. Oke, sekarang changing card, tukar bisnis Anda, ya, getting the network, 10 minutes gitu ya. Oke, silahkan, jangan ragu-ragu. Oke, lain kali bawa yang banyak Pak, biar dapat bisnisnya banyak. atas ini nih, siapa?
Saya dari Organizer and Trainer. Saya sebagai marketing eksekutifnya dari Bussiness Organizer tersebut. Kami biasanya bergerak di bidang wedding planner, shoot ceremony. Kami juga pernah membantu beberapa event seperti launching produk Philips, launching grand shootnya di Town Square. Juga dari saudara-saudara sekalian ingin membutuhkan bantuan dari event organizer kami siap membantu. Dan terima kasih. Sebelumnya saya adalah mahasiswa dari saya dan saya bekerja di sana sebagai partner.
Ini yang doyan party nih, party konsultan dan organizer. Boleh nih sekali-sekali SBN-nya diorganize gitu ya, supaya lebih ramai. Boleh dari out country-nya nih, Mr. Miguel Angel Esquiva. Is that right? That I say? Ya, ini dia mau kenalin bisnisnya dia.
I promise next time we will bring something.
It is Tajin Classic.
Okay. So I'm representing a Mexican company. This company is producing chili sauce. Chili sauce. So next time we should try here with even with ice cream. Ice cream with chili sauce. You're laughing, but you will try it and you will really like it. So this company is a chili powder company operating in Mexico, in the US, and also in some other places. Of course, now the market is Asia. So this company wants now to enter to Indonesia, Malaysia, Thailand, etc. So I'm doing some research here in Indonesia and looking for partners to introduce this product. So anyway, but I think you should try it to see get to know this product through the farm. Thanks.
You do business with Indonesian people. Okay? Thank you.
Selamat sore teman-teman rekan bisnis Praps. Saya pertama kali ke sini, paling junior juga mungkin. Saya bekerja di Komodek, kita di bidang penyediaan atap metal. Izin pintu Pak ya.
Tanpa sambungan ya?
Tanpa sambungan Pak, spesialisasi kita Pak.
Getalan tanpa sambungan. Saya kenalnya ayahnya.
Oh gitu Pak ya.
It's okay.
Pak, bos saya Pak, bukan ayah saya Pak.
Bos saya.
Thank you Pak.
Oke, kita plus buat Komodek. Ini kalau Anda lewat jalan Basuki Rahmat ya, di ujung Basuki Rahmat itu Anda lihat apa Komodek. Kalau yang penggemar Business biasanya.
Kami berada di Surabaya yang banyak industri lainnya juga.
Gitu. Apa Pak yang paling kedepannya links kemana Pak arah bisnis?
Mungkin food juga.
Ya, aplaus buat Jimmy. Ya, bisnis di Indonesia saya lihat mulai banyak yang ini ya, grup-grup besarnya banyak yang balik arah ya. Kemarin saya di Kediri dengan grupnya Gudang Garam, mereka fokus lagi ke rokok ya, lokal air minumnya dijual, kemudian helikopter taxi-nya dibikin Surya Air ya, jadi mau bikin pesawat antar daerah. Oke.
Ya, terima kasih. Jadi memang ini saya pertama kali hadir di forum ini, jadi ini juga kesempatan saya untuk berkenal dengan Bapak Ibu sekalian. Dan atas nama Bapak Rektor yang hari ini berhalangan ada tugas di Jakarta, saya sampaikan juga terima kasih atas kehadirannya dan support untuk acara ini dan yang akan datang. Semoga nanti banyak hal yang bisa kita lanjutkan bersama-sama ya, untuk kita bisa bermanfaat. Terima kasih sekali lagi, selamat malam.
Kita sedikit apa namanya menyingkat waktu mungkin ya, kasihan Dokter Bernardo, saya lihat kakinya udah goyang-goyang terus ya, sudah nggak sabar gitu ya. Tadi siang dia ada talk show di jam 7 pagi di Sindo Radio. Saya nggak tahu malam ini ada yang panggilnya dari Sindo Radio datang nggak? Jadi tadi pagi jam 7 sampai jam 8 mereka talkshow di Sindo Radio, juga sama jaringan-jaringan kita ya. Kemudian jam 3 sampai jam 4 di radio di CSR. Sebetulnya buat Anda yang punya bisnis, kalau Anda ikut memeriahkan terus, maka semua logo Anda keluar pada saat kita ini ya. Jadi kalau Anda senang, Anda merasa oke dengan Surabaya Business Network ini, saya pikir tidak ada salahnya Anda sama-sama mensupport ya. Oke, Dr. Berni, boleh saya panggil Dr. Berni? Can I call you Dr. Berni ya? It's your time nanti. Better. Kita applause dulu buat Dr. Berni.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. First, let me say that today is Friday, therefore I have a batik. But it is a very unique batik. It is called Barong batik because it's a synthesis between the Barong Tagalog of the Philippines and the batik of Indonesia. And I thought it was very appropriate that I should wear this because I'm going to talk a lot not only about the Philippines as an emerging market, but about Indonesia, and I'm not saying this to flatter you, as the lead emerging market of Southeast Asia. You know, I remember, and I was reminded by Mr. Bamba, that our last appearance here was with two of my Filipino colleagues, Mr. Zulueta and Mr. Aquilano. And for those of you who were here, you will remember that we talked about the VIP. Vietnam, Indonesia, and the Philippines. Now, just to illustrate how dynamic the world economy is. For example, when we were here more than a year ago, the problems of Europe, the problems of the United States, for example, Occupy Wall Street, they were unthinkable. Couldn't have thought that people would be marching against Wall Street, but as you know, that has happened. Well, let me update you about the VIP. Unfortunately, at least temporarily, we have to talk only about IP. The V has disappeared because Vietnam is in very serious trouble. 25% inflation. The dong is devaluing. The banks may go bankrupt. And so Vietnam at the moment is not very attractive. Therefore, it's only Indonesia and the Philippines that are now getting a lot of praises from investors from all over the world. We were just in Jakarta 2 days ago, and we met with bankers, with businessmen, and they all agreed that Indonesia will grow at least at 6% in GDP this year. Do you know that 6% in 2011 is marvelous? You know, any country in Europe, the US or Japan would die to get 6%. But Indonesia is going to be at 6% and probably next year at 7%. And we are following very closely Indonesia because this year we also can achieve 6%. So you see, little by little, Indonesia and the Philippines, and I will now use another metaphor, we are non-identical twins. I hope you understand what non-identical twins are. We are twins. Indonesia, for those of you who are in finance, know, is almost going to get investment grade from your credit rating agencies. The Philippines is just 2 notches below Indonesia because we have done a very good job, like you, in reducing our government deficit, in stabilizing our banks. Your rate of non-performing loans is very low like ours, single digit. No, it's unthinkable that Indonesia is now such a stable macroeconomy when in 1998, I don't want to remind you of the very painful episode in your national economy in 1998, when many of you probably were losing hope that Indonesia would ever recover. But it's amazing how it has recovered. And it's amazing how, from all over the world, people are saying that Indonesia is going to lead Southeast Asia. And that is why Indonesia is the only Southeast Asian country that belongs to the group of 20. So I'm sure you know that there is a very powerful group of 20 nations who meet every year to discuss world problems. And as I will show you in a list, Indonesia is the only Southeast Asian country which is part of G20. Okay, so this is my introduction. And I will also encourage you, I don't want to lecture to you the whole night. You know, I'm a professor, and if you give me the chance, I will lecture to you for the next 3 hours. No? So, you better participate by asking questions, by giving me your feedback. This could be interactive. So all of you are computer literate. In computer learning, it has to be interactive. So from time to time, I will stop and encourage you to ask questions, to make comments, to sell your products. I'm glad Miguel already sold us the hot sauce from Mexico. And I am truly a believer that the Mexican hot sauce will be very successful in Indonesia, Thailand, Malaysia, even India, because all your tongues are similar. You like your tongues to be burnt by spices. Not the Philippines. I don't think Miguel's product will succeed in the Philippines, except in one province called Bicol. But the rest of us, oh, we don't like spices. So I'm already warning him not to even try in the Philippines. Okay, now, I will definitely tell you about the Philippines, but in the process, I will also tell you about your country. Because whatever I can say about the Philippines is going to be true, even to a higher degree, about Indonesia. Okay, now, very quickly, we should agree on what is happening to the world. Because you can no longer talk about a country without speaking first about the global economy. I may not believe that the world is flat, as Thomas Friedman said in his bestseller. But there is no question that the global economy is so united that whatever happens to one will have an even immediate impact on another. And therefore, as I told you, Mr. Zulueta and Mr. Atenalo told you, we have to always think global while acting local. I'm sure this is the first time you've heard this slogan. Think global, act local. Now let's think global. U.S. economy is slowing down. In fact, that might be an understatement. The U.S. economy is in serious danger of a double-dip recession this year and next year. And what does that mean? U.S. economy may experience negative GDP growth. The European Union is in economic turmoil. I don't have to tell you about what's happening to Greece, to Ireland, to Portugal, to Spain. And that will last at least for the next 5 years. There's no way Europe can get out of its problem in the next 5 years. So don't count on Europe for the source of global growth. And I don't want to belabor the point about the PIGS. I know talking about pigs in a Muslim country is not very proper, but pigs means, as you know, Portugal, Ireland, Greece, and Spain. So we have a Spaniard here. Where's our Spaniard? They know very well that Spain is also in serious trouble. They will have an election in November. They may have new leaders, but even the best leaders will take time to solve the problem of Spain that has overborrowed, that is overly dependent on real estate. this is a warning to Indonesia. Don't fall too much into population control, because you may be like Japan, regretting it, as Lee Kuan Yew of Singapore has been regretting it over the last 20 years. Lee Kuan Yew has publicly said one of the errors he made when he was the leader of Singapore was to have the policy of stop at 2. Because he has been frantically trying to get Singaporean women to have babies. No success. Impossible. So this is just a warning about the problem of Japan. Then, fortunately, Indonesia, China, India, the Philippines are still growing, and we will look at other countries that can join us as emerging markets. Unfortunately for us, the Arab Spring in the Middle East and North Africa had very little impact on us. We sympathize with them. As I said, we would like to help them really become democracies. And Indonesia will be very important in this process. But economically, what has happened in the Middle East has not had that serious a negative impact on the emerging markets. Now, let me start by explaining to you, and then I would end, and then I would stop and then ask you for comments. Let me just explain to you what an emerging market is. You know, we economists always invent new phrases. We always want to confuse you. So, those of you who are studying economics, I'm sure your professors are always confusing you. GDP, GNP, M1, M2, M3, etc., etc. That's our favorite trick, to impress you with words you do not understand, because then we will sound very intelligent and you as very ignorant, no? But I don't want to be the kind of an economist. I want to make sure that when I use the phrase emerging market, you understand exactly what it is. The phrase emerging market began about 12 years ago when an economist of Goldman Sachs, one of the largest investment banks in the world, by the name of Jim O'Neill, studied what would happen to the world in the next 20 years, using all the statistical tools, forecasting population, forecasting GDP, and he found out from his research that in the next 20 years, 4 countries will dominate the global economy, eclipsing gradually the former leaders, US, Europe, and Japan. And I'm sure many of you know exactly which these 4 countries are. Brazil, Russia, India, China, BRIC. And that is why now everyone is talking about BRIC. Brazil, Russia, India, China. And we will examine these countries one by one. But what is a common denominator among these 4 and among 11 other countries that were added 2 years later by Jim O'Neill? The common denominators are, number 1, they have huge populations. Meaning their internal domestic market is so large that even if the whole world is undergoing a recession and they cannot export to the world, they can at least sell to their own people. That is now a tremendous advantage. To have a large population will immunize you to a certain extent from the global crisis. Because even if you cannot export to Japan anymore as much as you did in the past, you can at least sell to 240 million Indonesians, among others, the product of Villegas. Among others. No? And you can sell them noodles, you can sell them Coca-Cola, you can sell them Unilever, you can sell them Procter & Gamble. You can have your business going up and up and up because you have 240 million Indonesians who are buying these products. That is the first good quality of an emerging market. The second is an emerging market generally is very rich in natural resources. Of course, in addition to the most important resources of all, and as you very well know, what is the ultimate resource? The ultimate resource is the human resource. So the bigger the population, the bigger the human resource. But if you also have, as in Indonesia, a lot of oil, a lot of copper, a lot of nickel, a lot of coal, a lot of seas for aquatic resources, a lot of thousands, millions of hectares of agricultural land, well, you are definitely going to be a world power in the 21st century. In the last century, who were the most appreciated economies? They were called the tiger economies. I'm sure those of us who are over 50, and I was commenting to Mr. Pamba, I'm so glad that many of you are less than 50. And so those of you who are in your 20s, in your 30s, in your 40s, you will live for the next 30 years. I remind you that in Indonesia, the life expectancy for women is something like 72. So the women here will live at least up to 72, and many of them will live up to 100. The men usually live shorter. You know, you will find that there are more widows than widowers, because wives always outlive the husbands. No. But nevertheless, males in Indonesia will live probably all the way up to 69. So those of you who are only in your 20s, oh, you have many, many years, and you will be able to verify whether or not this Dr. Villegas made the right forecast. No. I will not be around, no. But you will say, oh, the Dr. Villegas is wrong, or correct, depending on what happens. No. So, you will see this Asian century, and Indonesia and the Philippines will definitely be part of it. So, here, before I proceed with other data, let me invite some questions or comments. I always want to be provocative so that precisely you will interact with me in this presentation. Anyone would like to raise a question? Don't be shy. This is also an opportunity for the young people to perfect their English. Mr. David Parker here is an English instructor. He can always mentor you in American English. You can speak with an accent of the Americans.
Ya, mau bertanya ada mic-nya di situ, silakan.
Please. Anything I said that is not clear or that you object to? Because I can be wrong, so I'm not always correct. As you know, economists many times can be wrong. And a lot of the problems of today's world economy were due to economists. No? Okay, but as long as you know you can stop me anytime, I will continue. But please, don't hesitate to raise your hand when I say something that you want to be clarified. Okay, next please. Now, I just want to show you, and this very updated, this is September 2011, coming from the IMF and World Bank. Now, let me show you 2009. Look at the column of 2009. Now, 2011 will be similar in terms of very low growth or no growth at all. And in fact, I think the IMF probably by the end of this year and early next year may have to downgrade even these very low projections. They have not inputted yet some of the worst things that can happen to Greece. For those of you who watch CNN and BBC, in Greece, the government will not be able to pass the bill of austerity because the citizens are turning violent. The citizens are objecting. And it's a very serious situation to be in because the Greeks are caught between the devil and the deep blue sea. They have to have an austerity measure because that's the only way they will say. But the citizens are objecting. And so that is a very difficult political and economic problem to resolve. So, but here you see how stagnant the developed economies will be for a good number of years. Next, please. Now, I just wanted to show you the most powerful economies in the world today. Obviously, the US is still the most powerful economy. The last century was the American century. They had a lot of time to go to the top. 15 trillion US dollars of total GDP. But one thing I would like you to observe is that starting last year, so 2010 was the tipping point. China surpassed Japan as the second most powerful economy in the world. And take a look at 2011. China has left Japan even much behind. China has $1.1 trillion more of GDP than Japan. And as the years go, China will leave Japan increasingly behind. And according to Goldman Sachs, by 2027, China will be the #1 country in the world, surpassing the US. And 2027 is not too far away for those of you who are young. So you will live to see China becoming #1 and the US #2. Remember, we're talking about absolute GDP, not per capita income. Probably in our lifetime, in your lifetime even, you may not see China having a higher per capita GDP than the United States. But in absolute GDP, it is not going to be too far in the future when China would be larger than the US. Countries like India, countries like Mexico, and countries like South Korea. I think again, Miguel can take a bow, because take a look, Mexico is already among the most powerful economies in the world. And just think, 10 years ago, Mexico was called the tortilla economy. No, very much behind, trying to struggle. A lot of Mexicans swimming the river just to go to the United States. Now Mexico is there among the most powerful economies in the world. Now, this is a sign of what can happen in the next 10 to 20 years. Increasingly, in the next 10 to 20 years, you will see unfamiliar faces among the most powerful economies in the world. And I wouldn't be surprised that if in 10 to 20 years, Indonesia will be there, dislodging other developed economies. Dislodging France, for example, or dislodging even the UK. Because you are growing at 7-8% a year, while the developed economies would be lucky if they grew at 1 to 2% a year. And you don't have to be a super mathematician to know that if there's a big difference, sooner or later, those growing at 7 to 8% will surpass those growing at 1 to 2%. For more than 20 years, every time the world leaders would meet to discuss world problems like nuclear proliferation, like certain border problems among different countries, only 7 or 8 countries would be represented. That's why they were referred to as G7 or G8. G8 when they wanted to include Russia, G7 when Russia was excluded. Starting 2008, that's no longer possible for just 7 or 8 countries to meet to discuss what would happen to the rest of us. 12 other countries have told the G7, no way you can meet and discuss our future without consulting us. From now on, every time we meet, 20 of us will be represented. And who are those additional 12? Australia, Argentina, Brazil, China, India, Indonesia. Look at you, Indonesia, you're the only one in Southeast Asia. Mexico, Saudi Arabia, South Africa, South Korea, Spain, again, Juan Gabriel, can be proud of that, and then Turkey. So, G20. And every year now, G20 goes from one country to another, and they start discussing how to resolve problems of global warming, problems of immigration, and so on and so forth. Next, please. Now, I just wanted to show you in statistical detail what I said about Indonesia. Indonesia can grow at 6% even if the world is undergoing a recession. Because take a look at how Indonesia is dependent on exports. In 2010, only 25%. Take a look at Singapore. In 2010, Singapore is 211% dependent on exports. Can you imagine? 211% dependent on exports. Take a look at Hong Kong. 223% dependent on exports. So what is the moral of the lesson? Indonesia and the Philippines are not export dependent. So the moral of the lesson is don't be overly dependent on exports if you don't want to suffer when the world is suffering. Have your own internal market. And that is exactly what Indonesia and the Philippines have in common. We have our own internal markets. And I'm now going to say the most provocative, and I don't care even if the government puts me in jail. Don't believe in birth control. Don't believe in family planning, because those are stupid economic measures. Stupid. Because the ultimate resource is the human resource. You know, just to be very, let's say, emotional, who knows, the baby that you may be preventing from being born may be the next Steve Jobs. Now that Steve Jobs is no longer around. How do you know that's not going to be a person who will be so bright that he can solve the problem of 1 billion people at any time? Or Mark Zuckerberg. How many Facebook people are there? I know that Indonesia is number 2 not in Facebook, and number 1 in Twitter. For example, there are 700 million Facebook people, thanks to Mark Zuckerberg. Can you imagine if Mark Zuckerberg was aborted? As you know, Steve Jobs was almost aborted. In his speech to the Stanford graduating ceremony, he told the history of his life. And his mother was a single mother who was not going to take care of him. Fortunately, there was a very good couple who took care of him. So I know that this is a very controversial issue, but that is something I always, as an economist, I'm not talking as a moralist, I'm talking as an economist. The ultimate resource of every country is the human being. Next, please. So this is the first brick, but updated all the way up to 2000. This is 2009, some of them, but 2011 are most of them. So if you take a look at Brazil, Russia, India, China, if you stop there, I always tell investors, you are going to miss a very important opportunity in the ASEAN. Because especially starting 2015, the ASEAN will be a totally free market. And so which means that the ASEAN should be treated as one country, economically speaking. And if you take a look at the ASEAN, its population is 592 million, larger than Russia, larger than Brazil. So if Russia and Brazil are included in BRIC, the ASEAN should be included. In GDP value, the ASEAN is almost equal to India, larger than Russia, and therefore deserves to be part of BRIC. Foreign exchange reserves, bigger than India, bigger than Russia, bigger than Brazil. And we definitely should sometimes respect what is known as political correctness. Next, please. Now, this is the interesting list. After BRIC, Jim O'Neill added the next 11. And these are the countries in the next 11. Bangladesh, Egypt, Indonesia, Iran, Mexico, Nigeria, Pakistan, the Philippines, South Korea, Turkey, and Vietnam. In the Philippines, And probably to a certain extent, I should tell the Indonesians the same thing. In the Philippines, I'm telling the young people, take a look at these countries. This should be a list of the countries that you will visit in the next 3 to 5 years if you have money to travel. Forget, with due respect to David, Florida, Orlando, Las Vegas. You know, because Filipinos are so obsessed with traveling to the States, I tell them that was true in the past. Today, it is more profitable for you to discover that there's such a city called Surabaya, or Mumbai, or Rio de Janeiro, or Acapulco, etc. A lot of these Asians, I do not exaggerate, some Filipinos don't know that Surabaya is in Indonesia. You mention Indonesia, Jakarta. But the same thing, I will give you a test. To the Indonesian, if I mention Cebu, you may think that it is somewhere in Africa. But Cebu, like Surabaya, is the second largest city in the Philippines. No? Because to them, Manila. But Davao, Cagayan de Oro, Cebu, these are equally very exciting cities in the Philippines. And tremendous business opportunities. And I like very much the name of your organization, Network. When you travel, it's not only the tourism that you should be interested in, it's networking. You can combine business with pleasure. And so start traveling more and more to the non-traditional destinations. And I'm so glad that we have here people from other countries who are Indonesia rather than in Las Vegas. No? Now, one other very interesting lesson from this list. The person here who is knowledgeable about Southeast Asia would already be wondering about a mysterious missing country from this list. And I'm sure if I gave you a quiz, which we don't have time to do, I'm a professor, so professors always give quizzes. No? I'm sure you will tell me the mysterious missing country is Thailand. How come Thailand was not included among the emerging markets? Thailand has 60 million people. So it's even bigger than South Korea. The answer, once again, is demographic. Thailand is the first country in the history of mankind to grow old before becoming rich. That is a very unfortunate situation to be in. The percentage of old people in Thailand to the population is already higher, believe it or not, than Singapore. And Singapore, as you know, is already talking about the demographic winter. So you can imagine a country that only has $4,000 per capita. Just to give you a comparison, Singapore has $40,000 per capita. So that is what a rich country is today, 40,000 at least. In fact, the United States with $50,000 per capita. But Thailand has only 4,000. At 4,000, Thailand is already aging. Disaster. And therefore, if you are an investor, you would not think of Thailand for a long-term investment, because you will see its market already becoming older and older and older. The problem with countries that are older and older and older is that you cannot sell too much Coca-Cola, you cannot sell too much McDonald's, you cannot sell too much, toothpaste. In fact, jokingly but truly, I say the only market that is very exciting in Japan and other Asian countries is the market for false teeth. You will make a lot of money if you produce false teeth. But old people don't drink soft drinks, don't drink all these things, and Miguel will not be able to sell his hot spices if everyone is over 65. No? And that is the unfortunate thing about Thailand. Because of too aggressive a population control program in the last century, Thailand has fallen into a demographic winter too early in its stage of development. So another important lesson. Oh, any reaction? I'm precisely telling you all these very provocative statements, so you will tell me, Dr. Villegas, I disagree. And I will be listening to you precisely. That's the very nature of our discussion. You disagree, you disagree. Question? Yes, please, yes. The lady there.
It's better putting the in there.
First of all, it's a privilege to see you today. It's such a coincidence.
Please, you can use my...
Okay, I don't know. It's a privilege to come today because I'm actually from Jakarta. My director, like, she asked me to come here and like.
Welcome to Surabaya.
Okay.
Selamat datang.
First of all, I would like to comment on the South Korea development.
Yes.
If entertainment business is an indicator of any kind, you can see that in Indonesia, the Korean pop is the thing right now.
That's right.
I mean, like, Hollywood would probably be like the second thing in Indonesia.
Correct.
Secondly, I would like to comment on the creative industry. I came from Vancouver, so contrary to Jakarta, I see like the creative industry where my friend work at. They got underpaid by Square Enix. Actually, it's an American company. So I would like to ask you, is it better for them to just go abroad rather than be a like creative industry slave in Indonesia? Because they get paid like only 10% what they could make in America and with the same job. And they have to work at the same company. Square Enix is such a big company.
Well, I think you've given the answer yourself. In that situation, if I were they, I would go to America. And but I'm sure, especially with a very intelligent person like Mari Pangetsu, now managing the creative industry, she will address some of those disparities and get, for example, the Philippines, we are #1 in animation. Filipinos are so good in animation that they're the ones who actually provide Hollywood. They're not slaves. They may not be getting as much because the cost of living in Vancouver or in Los Angeles is very high. Definitely the wages will be higher. But it's a matter of making sure that they are not being exploited. That's the important thing. And at least as far as I know, the people in Manila who are in animation are happy with the wages they're receiving. But there will also be a differential.
Yeah,
There will
but I
always
buy
be.
from the supplier.
Apparently what they're saying is that they're out of ideas in America, like what to do next, like another card games, another sim games, and they come to like universities in Jakarta and they give up 100 million rupiahs just to ask you to develop a game story. And I say, oh, well, that's a good money for a university student, 100 million. But then what they're saying, Irene, they got your idea and it becomes theirs and they sell it for $100 million. You see the difference there? They pay 100 million rupees in Indonesia and sell it for $100 million out there. Like, I would really love if there's an investor today. I know my friend's a genius. And if you want to do the big thing, like the next big thing, it's gotta be creative.
Very good. I'm glad that you're supporting that industry, yes. But my solution is to get a lot of Indonesian experts in venture capital, transfer some of the expertise of Silicon Valley to Surabaya, Jakarta, and then they're the ones who are going to make sure that a lot of the profits are actually retained in Indonesia. So you can have, I'm sure, experts in financing who are Indonesian. In fact, let me tell you that in the Philippines, some of the largest companies right now are partly funded by the Salim Group. They're practically everywhere. They're in energy, they're in infrastructure, and that's money coming from Indonesia. So which means that Indonesia already has a lot of capital. It's a matter of now making sure that Indonesian venture capitalists do the work that used to be done in Vancouver or in California. So that's my challenge to those of you who are in finance.
Well, I would really like to praise an Indonesian entrepreneur called San Diego Snow. He actually comes to these young people, like they ask him, like, if you have an idea, you come to me, and I see it's viable, I'll develop it for you.
Very good. Very good.
I really
So
like
I think that's the solution.
And next thing is, I guess I would like to clarify what my director said. I'm also from Hartino. Actually, the product is right behind you.
Yes.
As you say, engineering. I think my boss went into engineering in the 70s and discovered this chemical. So we're the only one in US. Our timber, if you look up Eco Blue, it's the only timber that's certified actually concrete. It's the only timber. If a firefighter see a house burning in America, all houses are not made of concrete. It's made of timber, right? It's the only house that you can actually allow to go in because it's certified concrete. And the thing is, our product is big and anywhere else unless Indonesia. So what we're trying to do, because you were explaining how to go abroad. What we're doing is how to spread it in Indonesia. Because it's so stupid. It's an Indonesian product, but it's being used by the US Army, the Malaysian Army, and anyone else. So what my boss is trying to do is how to spread it in my own country. And BC Fire, they use our product. Indonesian Fire, we have to get the Malaysian to scold our first to actually ask the government to do something about it.
Very good. So we have a challenge to you and the Indonesians to take a closer look at Indonesian technology and not to underestimate them and not to have this colonial mentality that everything abroad is better than what is local. But I fully sympathize with you because that is also the problem with the Philippines. They always think that the Americans are the best and anything developed by Filipinos are inferior. No? So, but that is a cultural mindset that can be changed. And that precisely business networking affairs like this can partly solve the problem. Like you making a presentation to the others, and if you can replicate what Mr. Bambam and company have done in Surabaya, in Yogyakarta, in all the main cities, then little by little we will convince Indonesians that Indonesian technology can be as world class as other nationalities.
And at least for now it's cheaper.
Oh, definitely, yes. Very good. Thank you very much. Any other questions? What about from the non-Indonesians? You may have some contributions to make to this dialogue. So, this precisely, please.
Yeah, I would like to ask, you showed us the GDP and the growth rates. I was wondering, what about the per capita growth rates in Asia? Are they the same high numbers or?
Oh yes, I mean, for example, if China is growing at 9.1%, their population growth is only 1%. So it's amazing. Per capita income is growing at 8%.
In countries like Indonesia?
Indonesia was at 6%. I think your population growth rate is at 2%. Yeah. So that means that you're growing positively at 4% every year. So there is real growth in per capita income in Asia. It's not completely negated by population growth rate. So there's another reason why you should not be so afraid of population growth rate. Your GDP is growing faster than, as long as the policies of the government are making inclusive growth possible. And that is the new phrase of development economics, inclusive growth. Growth that makes the poor richer and not only the rich richer. Because up to now, growth has just been making the rich richer, and that's why you have the movement against Wall Street. The ones who get rich are the executives of Lehman Brothers in the past. Fortunately, this disappeared. But you still have a lot of complaints about how the investment bankers are getting so high bonuses when 25% of Americans graduating from universities are jobless. That really can cause a lot of social problems. And these poor American university graduates are very highly indebted because, as you know, Americans, to be able to go to universities, have to borrow a lot. And then they graduate, no jobs. So you can imagine.
So then instead of okay, these numbers, the GDP is very interesting, but then don't you think that it's even more interesting to look at
Take a look at the income distribution, definitely. Definitely. More important measure of human development is what is known as the Human Development Index. And I hope you who are studying economics know exactly what I'm talking about. Human Development Index adds to GDP other measures of human welfare, like life expectancy, like the number of schooling average years, like health indicators, mortality, etc., etc. When these are all put together, you have what is known as the Human Development Index. That's where I was going. Thank you. Thank you. Any other question or clarification? Yes, please.
Thank you. First of all, I would like to thank for your interesting presentation.
Thank you very much.
And if you have the data, I would like to hear more about the profile of Philippines, so I can see the business opportunity in Philippines. Thank you.
Well, profile the fastest growing industries right now, just to shorten that list. At the moment, the most profitable businesses are business process outsourcing. That is now employing 500,000 people, generating something like $10 billion, and it continues to grow. There seems to be no limit. Because, in fact, the more problems US, Japan, and Europe face, the more their large corporations are outsourcing a lot of their business processes, because it's a way down to cut down their costs and to be able to be competitive. So that's one of the most, and because of that, real estate is booming, because they have to put up a lot of office buildings. You know, one BPO company from the US starts in the Philippines, immediately they need 10,000 workers to be housed. And you can imagine the offices that are built left and right. Not only in Manila, incidentally, Cebu, Iloilo, Bacolod, Dumaguete. I know some of these names don't sound anything to you because they're unknown. But the good thing is this progress is benefiting a lot of areas outside Metro Manila, and that's contributing to distributing income and wealth for equity. Then, agribusiness. I want to emphasize how important agribusiness is. Futurologists are saying that in the next 20 years, the biggest challenge to the world is no longer to be energy. There will be increasingly abundant alternative sources of energy, from biomass, biofuels, solar, wind, geothermal. It's amazing. Indonesia can produce thousands and thousands of megawatts of geothermal. You have volcanoes all over your islands. And it's a matter of getting the technology. We got our technology from New Zealand 30 years ago. Now we are number 2 in the world, geothermal. Now some of our companies, like EDC, Energy Development Corporation, is talking to some Indonesian partners to start putting up geothermal plants in Indonesia. So that is also very promising, alternative sources of energy. But the biggest challenge to the world in the next 20 years is going to be the shortage in food and water. Those are the two most critical resources in the next 20 years. Food and water. Water, because in order to produce food, you need water. And that means any one of you who will make a business plan getting into agribusiness or water will break it in, will make a lot of money. So I suggest that you look into those areas. In the Philippines, some of the export-oriented industries that are surviving even with the big crisis in the world are electronics. In fact, right now what's happening is China is no longer attractive for companies like Hitachi, Intel, because in the leading cities of China like Shanghai, Guangzhou, and Beijing, they have run out of workers. Thanks to the one-child policy, China, believe it or not, with 1.3 billion people, is already suffering serious labor shortages in their key cities. And so there's now a reverse flow from China to the Philippines, to Vietnam, and Indonesia. And you have to capture that process. You know, I was talking to the Hitachi manager in Manila, and Hitachi, producing all sorts of high-value electronic products, decided to close down their factory in China because in that factory in Shanghai, they have an attrition rate of 30%. In 1 year, they lose 30% of their workers. And during Chinese New Year, the attrition is 50%. The workers who go back to their provinces do not come back. So you can imagine how unstable their operations are. In their plant in the Philippines, the attrition rate is only 5%. Not by any stretch of the imagination can any one of us lead the world politically. That will be the task of the Americans for a long, long time to come. Who of us, let me just add, who of us can spend as much money as Obama is spending on military expenditures in Iraq, in Afghanistan? No way we can ever do that, not even the Chinese. And we have to thank the Americans that they have been doing that, because without them, we would have less stability in many of these areas. Jerome?
Oke, props dulu buat Pak. Air buat Dr. Ferry. Sebelum saya lupa, sedikit apa namanya. Biasanya pada penutupan SBN ini kita tetap ada door prize. Ini khas Surabaya nih, kalau datang lagi kasih door prize. Afdol. Ya. From Ubaya, give you a souvenir from Indonesia.
I thought I was going to pick something there.
Oh, no. This you can pick for the door prize after that.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Ya. Supaya Dr. Benny balik lagi ke Oke, kita applause lagi buat Dr. Benny. Ada di sini?
Downstairs.
Oh, downstairs. Oh, ini Pak. Wah, langsung naik dia. Kita dapat door prize nih Pak. Kalau datang ke SBN selalu beruntung. Ya, sama-sama. Oh, sudah 2 kali dapat Pak. Bagus ini. Bagus. Comeback ke Indonesia ya. Waduh, belum jualan ini udah dapat hadiah Bang ya. Ya, Oreo chili sauce. Next time, dia jadi distributor nih. Siapa yang berani jadi distributor chili sauce-nya si Joel nih. Terima kasih sama-sama untuk kami SBN Community. Oh, sudah hotel full. Ini bikin hotel di Filipina, Pak. Ya. All Filipina. Good evening, everybody. I'm very thankful for AD inviting me to attend this meeting tonight. And I am proud that the Philippines was mentioned about the economy. But actually we have natural resources and we have the human resources. And what keeps the Philippines still alive, because 90% of our people are educated and they are all over the world. Oh. Wherever there is water, there is a Filipino. Fishermen, navigators, seamen, and mentioned in the profession there's a Filipino. So that keeps the Philippines, its economy growing, because millions of dollars coming to the Philippines without investing in industry, without putting in what it comes from Filipinos sending their money to their parents and supporting our education, our industries, and we are even our restaurants are always built up every day. You will be surprised that supermarkets are always filled with Filipinos, carrying bags, and it's fine because they have advisors, because their parents or husband, relatives are sending their money every month. So I'm very thankful and I'm very proud of Dr. Villegas, and I know
Are you coming from Bussiness?
No, but I have relatives.
Yeah, because I come from Bussiness. Agriculture. Yeah, and then I am in the forest. Yeah, I'm in the mountain of Makiling. Yeah. And the agriculture is down, and I am with Tarzan and the monkeys. But I always in the lowland because our church is in the College of Agriculture. And besides the house of Dr. Villegas also, our professor in technology. So I'm very grateful to all of you who attended, and then and to Dr. Villegas. Thank you very much for giving this group an enlightenment and to see forward 10, 20 years to come. And it is very true that one of the best resources on earth is the human resources. And family planning, family control is already killing yourself. If you control birth, then you control everything. And if you control that, then economy will go down. Because humans is the one who develop the economy. And if there are natural resources, human resources, the economy cannot be. Nobody will work on that. Thank you very much, and Ed, thank you for inviting me.
Thank you for coming to BSB. Ya,
Thank you very much.
kalau yang masih mau ngobrol atau apa, tetap boleh di SBN ya. Anda yang punya alamat email, tolong diberitahukan ke Ibu Era di sana. Ibu Era kasih tangan dulu. Kita upload sini yang organize semuanya nih. Ya. Karena saya jam 4 sore baru dari luar kota masih drive sambil SMS gimana nih orang-orangnya udah ini belum. Terus Pak Heri, saya juga terima kasih tadi bantu banyak ya, Pak Heri Pratono. Kemudian saya minta dari semua aja, semua yang senang dengan komitmennya, semua yang dengan bisnis networking ini, tolong disebarluaskan ya. Juga terima kasih kepada timnya The Boliva. Pak Andre-nya nggak ada ya di bawah. Oh, Pak Andre, masih di belakang. Juga buat timnya yang nyiapin. Oke, akhir kata saya tutup SBN malam ini. Dr. Benny, thank you very much ya. Terus siapa yang mau bisnis sama Filipina nih? Nah ini nih, satu apa namanya? Chili sauce, ya. Dia cari distribusi nih, distributor. Iya. Oke, kita tutup. Aplaus sama-sama buat semua. Ya. Kita mungkin bisa Dutch beer, kalau sekarang San Miguelnya belum keluar. Oke, terima kasih buat semuanya.